Okay, welcome to Dumb SEO Questions, episode 131. Each week we meet here to answer the questions asked on the SEO Questions community on Google+. With us tonight we have David Rosam. David is an SEO copywriter. He's been he's been a copywriter for 30 odd years, 10 of those as an SEO copywriter. You can find David at
Even longer.
writingforseo.org. Masataki Wasa is webmaster of wasaweb.net. He's also a Google Top contributor on the AdSense and also the Google Plus Help community. SEO manager for Zazzle.com, Micah Fisher-Kirshner resides on the west coast of the USA. Correct? Pretty close.
Yeah.
How far are you from Mountain View, Micah?
Not very far. I drive past Facebook all day. Let's put it that way.
Oh, well.
So basically Redwood City near Palo Alto.
Okay. All right. As I said, each week people ask questions on the SEO Questions community on Google+, and at this time we attempt to answer them. Our first question tonight is from Edisham Shaikh, and he asks how to rank for a misspelled branded term or keyword. Edisham said, hello everyone, I need an effective opinion on how to rank for misspelled branded term or keyword. I have a site called www.example.com, and people also search for example or exampel, and I'm not ranking in the top 100 for those terms. What could be the best ethical possibilities to rank? P.S. I cannot add misspelled keywords in meta tags, cannot add a separate page. And he's eagerly waiting to hear from us.
Well, you wouldn't want to have the misspelled words in your content because that would just make your content look rubbish. You wouldn't want to have a page dedicated to the misspellings because Google would jump on you now because you would be making doorway pages. But luckily, Google does have a broader view of what a page is about. So quite often you find that multiples, plurals are ranked well when you talk about the singular. Google now knows variations, and that some of us don't spell or type very well. So I don't think there's very much you can do specifically on this, but to build your best page and make your site as much of an authority as possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Micah.
I mean, it should be pretty smart to be putting the two together. If it's not, yeah, it's hard to tell without knowing the actual keyword. You know, is it misspelled because there's another brand that's out there that's just in a different area and it's misspelled on purpose? You might want to consider what kind of creative way can you have a blog post that might talk about it. Are there actual differences that you can write about in a blog post that might, be able to kind of go for that misspelling and talk about it? It's hard to say in terms of just being creative, but it wouldn't, obviously this wouldn't be your homepage. Okay, so to be creative on something like that, let's just say it was the name of one of your products that you branded. And if you've got a story behind it about how someone's accidentally or people consistently misspell it for whatever reasons, there's a story for a blog post to potentially talk about it and how people pronounce it or write it in different ways than what it actually is, and going into the history of why it's spelled the way it is versus the other way. That's a creative kind of output to think about it if you've got a story behind it and you're seeing kind of this and Google's not recognizing the match between the two. Otherwise, it's a little difficult today because you don't want to have it come off of just creating a lot of misspellings because that will just kind of degrade the quality of your site over time if you're trying to rank and create these kind of low quality pages. So it's just really about how can you be creative with it.
Yes, if the misspelling is so common, then Google would usually say, do you mean the correct spelling? So if that's not turning up, then it might be the case that it's not a common misspelling, or that there is something spelled that way, which is a totally different thing. There's a possibility that that thing exists, that what you consider as misspelling does actually exist. For example, as another brand, or perhaps a technical term, a very obscure term, but nevertheless a term that exists. So I'm not so sure how much I would worry about it, unless you can really establish that it's affecting the site a lot. I mean, there are sometimes the reverse problem, isn't there? So a company comes up with a variation on a common word as a brand, and then they have problems getting ranked in that because Google considers it a misspelling of a common noun, for example.
Yep. Well, look, I think we can just about call this a wrap for this question. And any objections if I move on? Okay. I see we've just been joined by Richard Hearn. Richard is CEO of Red Cardinal. You can find him at redcardinal.ie. He's a conversion rate optimization specialist. Here's one from David Jones, who noticed some increase in traffic to his site. He noticed it on March the 3rd, but unfortunately his session duration and the number of pages visited dropped on the same date, which isn't good. On closer inspection, it looks like all of the traffic is under C language, which is supposed to be bots. I'm going to filter out this traffic from my Google Analytics results, but why would my site suddenly start getting bot traffic like this? I have made no recent changes to the site. There is a screen grab of the C traffic from March the 3rd attached. You can see this screen grab on the SEO Questions community in Google+. What answers do we have for David Jones, guys?
I've seen a lot of problems recently with referral spam in Google Analytics. You've got to bear in mind that if this is showing up in Google Analytics, it means that the client that is accessing the site is also executing your JavaScript, and that's why it's unlikely that it's a scraper, because a scraper doesn't need to execute your JavaScript. You'd have to dig in and see what's the user agent. Sometimes you need to go into your logs rather than use your GA. And a recent phenomena, just to add more complication to this, is that some of these bad agents, let's call them, are actually running your JavaScript, your GA JavaScript, without even visiting your site. So what they do is they basically pick up GA IDs and they just run them against Google Analytics just to appear in your analytics. So I've blocked a lot of bad agents at the server level, and then suddenly you see them coming back from somewhere new, and it looks like they should be blocked, but what's happening is they're not even hitting your site. They're just actually running they're hitting GA directly with your ID. So I don't know. It's an interesting one, but it's much more likely that it's a bad agent if they're running JavaScript.
Yeah, I've created the same things where it's just basically this is my filter for bad bots. As you were saying, take a look at the ISP organization or the service provider. Should be under the host, under the kind of technical side within Google Analytics. That will give you some insight if you're not as familiar or you don't have access to kind of a server log. That will at least see if you can narrow it down. That should help kind of give you insight if it's coming in from just one or a few locations. So yeah, keep an eye on something like that, and then you can essentially go in and block that going forward, so you don't see that data in GA.
David Jones also said in the comments on the SEO Questions community on Google+, David said, I'm getting the redundant host names yellow warning. The thing is that I had this a few weeks ago and thought it had been fixed, and the warning is property www.bloggingpro.com is receiving data from redundant host names. Some of the redundant host names are bloggingpro.com and www.bloggingpro.com. And he asks, so what should I do here? Should I 301 www.bloggingpro to the non-www version?
Well, you want to merge them together. Which one you choose is kind of up to you. I'm getting what he means, right? Yeah, you just merge one of them, throw one to the other, and just make sure they're all together.
Yep. All right. Let's. David Jones. I hope that has been helpful to you. Here's one from Davo21 who wants to move his site to HTTPS. He said, hello, I want to move my site to HTTPS. Besides a 301 redirect from htaccess and adding the HTTPS version of the site to Webmaster Tools, does it require any additional setup? What should I do with the regular HTTP version? Should I remove it from Webmaster Tools? And how long does it take for Google to show in search engine result pages the HTTPS URLs?
Yeah, there's a couple of other things. You want to essentially, all right, where do I want to begin? Okay, you don't remove the HTTP version from Webmaster Tools. Google specifically stated to keep it in there. You want to look at other things. So if you're creating XML sitemaps, make sure you've updated your XML sitemaps. If you've got social media buttons on there, make sure that there's a kind of a code to pull in your old data until you're ready to switch over to the new one, so you don't lose your social media likes, pluses, whatever, but numbers. You need to make sure the rest of the site is all under HTTPS. Any single thing on the page that isn't HTTPS is going to then basically say that your page is not HTTPS. So you need to double check to make sure everything is. And then consider other things like your email, your social media profiles on third-party sites, and anything else where you're linking to the old HTTP version. It's just a nice little kind of cleanup. And that can even be things like in your email, when you're talking about who you are. Just some simple cleanups to make sure that going forward now you're using HTTPS.
Yep.
Be careful of your ad networks if you serve ads.
Yes.
And if you rely on ads for your revenue, you need to bear in mind that Google has a different option for secure versus non-secure ad inventory. And if you use something like AdSense, you will probably see a decrease in your earnings because there's less competition for secure ads in the secure inventory and therefore lower CPCs. So it's just something that people don't necessarily consider. They just think it'll be fine because Google AdSense says that it supports HTTPS, but Google does not inform people directly that they have a slightly different option process, and a lot of their inventory is not available over SSL.
Right. I see you're in Ireland tonight, Richard.
I am for another week or two.
Mm-hmm.
Less than 2, actually.
How did I guess that? It's
Different backdrop, I
daylight out.
suppose.
No,
Daylight out.
daylight
Yeah, that's
outside.
true.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a question about the description meta tag from Dark Arts Guild. If the word description is spelled wrong, will it affect a website's SEO? Who wants to give Dark Arts Guild the bad news?
Shall I? Or does someone else want to do it?
Yeah, go for it. You can be the bad guy.
Okay, you're wasting your time with description tag content if you're trying to affect SEO, if indeed that is a sensible use of the term SEO. Google doesn't read it, doesn't add it to its shenanigans behind the scenes and working out how to rank. Presumably, if you spell description wrong, it won't turn up as a snippet below the search results. But I will defer to someone who knows for sure about that. So, not SEO wise, not ranking wise, but there is another effect probably.
Well, it would affect the click-through ratio, wouldn't it, David? Because that's the selling point, if you like. It's the your sales tag, which the reader reads in the search engine result.
Yeah, it depends on how much effort you put into your description tag. It's one of those things we as an industry say, you know, do this and do that with your description tag, but Google doesn't display it that often, and you can't actually influence whether Google displays it or its own summary of what's on your page. So it's all a bit hit and miss. It's something that, yes, in an ideal world, I would spend some time crafting very, very nicely. But if I'm pushed for time, it's something that I don't bother that much with. That's my that's my admission live on Dumb SEO Questions.
And who's to say whether any impact on click-through rate would be negative or positive?
Yeah, indeed. Yes. Which goes back to my point about, you know, how good is it? You know, what is good? Put it on, measure it, and then somehow tag it so you know that that you're getting more clicks from your content than
No way to do it.
But I don't know how you do that.
No, it's not possible to do because only Google has the data of what it's showing to everyone who your site appears to in a SERP. So, I think the answer to the question is really that they may as well just go and fix the spelling of description and take it from there. It's a bit pointless having anything in there if it's misspelled. So.
Yep, fair enough. So that's the answer for Dark Arts Guild. I see they also received many comments on the SEO Questions community. And I thank the people that make the effort to answer these questions through the week. Muiz bin Hamid asks a question regarding backlinks from Google. Muiz said, hello everyone, in Google Webmaster Tools /search traffic /links to your site, it says that google.com links to my website. What does that mean? Backlinks from Google?
Yes, I think the examples in the community answers are some more than likely reasons. Image search, or particularly Google Plus, sounds most likely to be the case. But you should know by kind of, if you drill into it, see kind of what the URLs are. It could be the product forms, who knows. You know, Google does own a number of different subdomains for different purposes. So it's completely possible.
However, highly unlikely that any of these links will have any value to your site.
Well, you know, it depends on which ones, but yeah, probably very unlikely.
All right, Muiz, I hope that has enlightened you. Our next question is from our good friend Niraj Kumar, who has a sigline now, K Niraj Kaisa. Asks, what is basic on-page SEO? He said, hi all, it's a basic query, but because many small business website owners and some new SEO executives are confused about search engine optimization. I'm asking here because these basics should be solidified by experts and authorities. I think the point he's making here is that our panel is full of experts and authorities. Straight away, you've got to like the guy. Next, he said, on-page SEO, title, description, keyword placement, headings, image optimization, internal links, outgoing links, contact form and placement, footer links, social media links, and what? What am I missing? I'd say very little.
I think the comment about semantic markup is probably one of the most important things that's been missed. But the other thing that's been missed is that it's less about what's in the code and more about how it's rendered. So chances are, I think it's probably been happening for a couple of years, but even more so than ever, I think Google is now rendering everything. So they're relying far less on what the structure of your code is, and instead looking at actually what's rendered to the screen and what do users see. So if it was me, the two things I would consider would be render-based optimization and semantic markup.
One of the things that specified as I was looking through it, and maybe it falls under the keyword placement, but it's just content. You need content for the page. Descriptive elements of what people are looking at would be kind of helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
For doing the content thing. I missed the beginning of this because there was a ring at the doorbell. But footer links I see put in here. Are footer links not a bad thing these days? Because web design companies have been abusing them by putting links back to their sites.
Well, you know, footer links is not something I would necessarily define as doing some on-page SEO, but you know, there's always ways where it's worked in and useful. There are sites that can do it well. Think of it as minor, much more minor than, say, the main navigation would be kind of a better thought process in there. But yeah, I think the bigger one that probably would be, I think it was in the comments. Yeah, it's not about LSI keywords at all, because LSI is what became afterwards. But yeah, the usage of it just depends on how you're defining it. If it's just a kind of a structural thing like you might see on CNN or something, then it's fine. It's just how you build just the structure of the website. But if you're using it purely kind of from the SEO side, then that's a little more dangerous. Less helpful then.
Okay, let's move on. Oh, David, I see somebody arrived during this question. This was the package you're expecting. Can we have an unboxing?
You're on mute, David.
Me buttons wasn't working. Anyway, no, it was another package, a completely unexpected package.
Okay.
Wasn't for me though, of course. It's my wife. Wasn't flowers, so I don't have to worry about that.
Angela had flowers last week.
Did she? Did you send them?
Look, I didn't, but I'm very concerned about my wife's happiness. You know, like if Angela's happy, I want to know who's responsible.
No.
So I checked the card. All right, here's one from Gears Suid. He has a plugin on WooCommerce, and I'm not sure if it's a good thing. He said, hello, I do cross-linking on WooCommerce. I research a plugin. This is translated from French, by the way. He says, how can I add 4 to 5 products associated to my products? Example, the Page product is Evian water, 1.5 litres, and I want to associate 4 to 5 products. Evian water 111, Evian water 222, Evian water 333, and Evian water 444 on the page.
So the person is looking for essentially a related products widget that they can integrate within their website. I'm going to assume within the website versus third-party, different domain. Not familiar with WooCommerce, but that's essentially what you're looking for. Many websites have this kind of structure. It's like, well, maybe you didn't want the 1.5, try this one. I don't know if any of you know WooCommerce to know what plugin might be of use, though.
As a general rule, though, would a plugin which adds 4 or 5 unrelated products be useful, like to each page? To every
well, it should
product?
be related. I mean, Water Evian, it's just a different type of Water Evian. I mean, you see this across many e-commerce sites where it's, you may have wanted this shirt, but hey, maybe here are a few others you might want to consider instead. Or there's the upselling. It doesn't have to be just related. Directly related. If you're looking to get a, I don't know, a tree, Christmas tree, you may want to buy some ornaments or a Christmas tree skirt or something related to that to go with it, to kind of pull in as a package. So I think that's fine. It's just I don't know what that is for WooCommerce.
Well, I mean, I can see that these things would be useful from a marketing point of view, but from an SEO point of view, wouldn't it be a negative?
No, you're just excuse me. You're just highlighting, related pages.
Okay.
So you're just linking from one product to another.
Yeah, the more internal links, the better on any website, generally speaking. Especially as you get larger, the more internal links you can have in the post. Nearly always, it's better than not having them. So.
Yeah, you don't want to silo everything if you well, there's certain limits of silos, which is fine. But like in this case, because they're related, you want to open it up and spread it out over there.
And it's also scale. Websites don't really scale very well with large numbers of products, so related links are going to be helpful to get links into stuff that could get buried very easily inside an architecture. And it happens a lot. So.
Okay, Gears, I hope you found that enlightening. I certainly did. Okay, here's another one from Gears, tag links on WooCommerce. He said, hello, I have a website, which is WooCommerce. Someone created tags which made duplicates with my categories. I have heard that the robots text disallow tag. Is this enough, or should I delete the site tag links?
No index. You can leave those tags there if you want, but set them to no index. You can probably use a plugin like Yoast SEO or something like that that will say no index all tag pages. It's actually, there's a bigger issue here. A lot of website owners, they think that robots.txt is the way to go where they may have content duplication, whereas really it's not, because there are negative implications of blocking robots from accessing your site in this way. Far better to let them access your site and no index the page, or to remove the pages. But robots.txt should really only be used in cases where you really don't want a search engine to go, or where it's private material that shouldn't be accessed publicly, or various other reasons. But for duplicate content, it's much better to use no index.
Yep. Okay, Gears, I hope you found that useful. Here's one when it comes up from Nebojsa Dukic. Nebojsa has a Doorways Pages question. He said, hi guys, as we know, Google is about to get rid of small business sites that have dozens or even hundreds of pages about the same service in many suburbs and areas. Such websites are very common, and personally I don't see anything wrong with them. People that are looking for local services, like locksmiths, plumbers, gardening services, don't care if a website of a local plumber contains many similar pages, because they simply won't browse them. Users land on a page dedicated to a service in their area. They check testimonials, etc., request a quote, and that's all. They don't go through 5 or more pages about the service in other areas, so there is no need to create each page completely different. Google insists on creativity, and I think it's crazy to expect your local plumber or a dentist to publish creative content on a regular basis. If Google penalizes small business owners just because they provide their services in many areas, what's an alternative? What kind of websites should those people create to please Google and still continue to rank for plumbers in Lambeth and similar? What's an alternative to websites with many similar landing pages that promote the same service in many areas?
Don't you love it when people answer their own question?
It's a definite thing, isn't it? You know, Google. You can't argue against Google. It's no good screaming about it. You've got to go on to part 2 of the question, which is how you get around it.
Yeah. Like, look,
And that said, he actually doesn't he supply quite a good use case though? If you read it, when you read what he's saying about from a user perspective, you could you could be excused for thinking, well, that makes a bit of sense. But the problem, as with most of these things, is that it's generally abused.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because this example is in London, how I would, for example, search for a local business would be probably typing in the postcode. So, you know, I might be looking for a plumber, then I might put in plumber SW19. So if a plumber covers the area SW19, then that, you know, I would be interested in that business. I'm not going to go for, let's say, Wimbledon, Putney, or Southfields. Those are different postcodes, but if you cover those, you could say you cover so much radius from a particular point, or you cover particular postcodes. So you might say, oh, I cover SW18, SW19, and you can put that on one page. So areas areas I cover, and then perhaps you could have a big page of customer testimonials where you can locate the person with a postcode, for example, or a sort of a generic place name. So in my case, I'd be interested in businesses that are located in, let's say, Wimbledon, Wandsworth, Putney, Roehampton, Southfields. So if you could get testimonials from people in those areas, for example, then that I think that's going to be a pretty strong signal. And I generally think that there are ways to describe which areas you cover without having to create, let's say, a page for plumber for Wandsworth, plumber for Lambeth, plumber for Merton, plumber for Richmond upon Thames.
Yeah, the other thing is, yes, I'm on. The other thing is that you can use blog posts to talk about various areas. It might not be a great thing for a plumber, but it depends. If you've done something exciting like sort out the walls that apply to Kew Gardens or something, then you could certainly do a blog post for it. You can certainly get geographic information in with stuff about plumbing. So a cookie cutter, just slam it all out and change the location is a simple way of doing it, but there's all sorts of reasons why you shouldn't do it. Duplicate content, doorway pages, all these things that Google doesn't like for reasons that we may argue about or not argue about. But there are ways of getting geographic and professional information into content without engaging a marketing agency to come up with a brand creative strategy for you. Look into what you're doing, look into where you're doing it. Think about what people ask you about, and put some content up. You don't have to do it all at once. Do it over time. End of, I think.
Right. The SW19. That's a pretty swish address, Masataki. Do you get invited to the Queen's Garden parties?
No.
He's in a posh area of London. He is. It's all green and stuff.
It's very nice. Yes. It's lovely down
All
here.
right.
Think about Wimbledon. It's a bit common.
Ooh.
Okay, Nabosha Dukic. I hope. Well, the one thing I would say is that you're probably totally right about Google's take on this, but there's no point being right with Google. It's just what Google thinks, and we've got to live with what we're given. Here's a question from Manjinder Kaur, who asks, "Hello, I have a question. How to increase site CPC, and which plugin is best? All-in-one SEO or SEO by Yoast?" On the SEO Questions community on Google+, the consensus was that SEO Yoast was in front, and also other questions which came up in the comments when she was asked about increasing site CPC. It was clarified that it's an AdSense site, and it was AdSense CPC, and her CPC has dropped from about 0.15 to 0.05.
That could be more about Google just not wanting to share too much with you than anything happened on your site. I'd say CPCs have probably been coming down for a lot of AdSense advertisers, and people are not making as much as they once did. Of course, it could also be that she might want to change some of the topics she discusses on her site to try to target terms that have higher CPCs.
Yes, an article on London hotels might be the go.
Only if you could rank in it.
All right, here's one from Joanna Robinson. Joanna said, "Hi all, I need to set up a blog outside my website. The purpose is to generate traffic to the principal website. What is the best platform? Is it WordPress? It is a travel website. I would appreciate it if someone could assist me in developing an SEO-friendly blog."
The thing that worries me, and I will defer to those here, is that she needs to set up a blog outside of her website to generate traffic to the principal website. I generally don't like doing that. That means you're putting effort into two sites rather than one. Your blog content can help the SEO of your main content, your main site. So why you would want to put it on a separate one, on the face of it, I don't know. We need to know a bit more about that. So in the first place, if this is just if this is a blog gives you good content and a way of producing it, then stick it on your principal website. The best platform, I'm a WordPress fan. I like WordPress because there's all sorts of ways of making it jump through hoops, and it's quite nice to for SEO purposes, and lots of people know how to use it and develop for it and blah blah blah. So without knowing specific use cases, WordPress is a good way to set your blog up.
Yep. More comments, please, guys. No? Okay. Well, Joanna, I hope you found that useful. I see Brett Saltalamacchia has said, I can help you in terms of the SEO things which need doing. Take a look at my profile and website and get back to me. Brett, we don't allow that on our community. It's self-promotion. If we allowed one to do it, we would spoil the content of our community. So please don't do that again. Next is from Valentina Huff. Did Google stop accepting microdata as its schema format and is only accepting JSON LD now? We've got two Masatakis.
No. No. Google still supports both. So, if not sure if the reason would be why if the testing tool.
Didn't we have a news item that the testing tool wasn't working properly?
Yeah, testing tool I think had some issues. You can also see if your site's already showing up in search results if you're using star ratings or something, and that or breadcrumbs or something. That would at least help to let you know they're using it. But yeah, sometimes their tools been finicky about stuff.
Okay. I see Edwin Yonk said Google supports both and gave a link. He is tireless. He is relentless. Where would we be without Edwin Yonk? And ProMoz SEO, who's been answering a lot of questions on our community, said schema is the universal structured data and recognised by all major search engines. Thank you to ProMoz SEO. Our next question is from Pablo Casso, who said, hi everyone, two questions for you all, again around the title and meta description tag. In your opinion, is it better to write short meta titles with some keywords, or is it better to write a big one with more keywords? Try an example. In the case of elections in Argentina 2015, you would write only Elections Argentina 2015. Or would you attempt to write a title longer, like Elections Argentina 2015, : candidates, dates, etc.? And what would you do with the meta description? It is a URL with many articles, so you would leave it empty and leave Google to take the meta description automatically. What would you do? I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
It depends on what else you've got going on. I'm sorry, this is going to be another it depends answer, but generally, let's do some generals first. Generally, don't stuff it full of keywords. It's something that might upset Google in the long run, and make sure that that the title tag is informative and matches up with what's on the page. We've had some talk about meta descriptions earlier, so I'm not going to go through that again. Just basically information, not SEO, not SEO benefit. And going back to my first remark, the what are you going to do? Is there going to be one page about elections in Argentina on 2015? Are you then going to write another piece about a particular candidate, a particular date in a particular place, or whatever? So you don't have to put everything in your root page, if you like, your main page. That you may well say Elections Argentina 2015, and then you then say, you know, Mr. So and so in somewhere or other, if you've got a piece or an entry about that. So don't try and do too much with one page, I'd say. I don't think you'd probably be saying something, only one thing about the election in Argentina in 2015, if that's what your site is about in some way. So try and match up the title tag with what you're actually saying on the page, and don't try and make the title tag do a job that the content itself isn't doing. Generally, go for try and make your title tag go up towards the 60 characters or so, rather than write a very short one. But yeah, I think that's it. Write them a reasonable length and make them match up with the content of the page. Don't make the title tag do something that the content of the page is not doing.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'd just say that anecdotally, Google tends to rewrite longer titles rather than shorter ones. So if you want to avoid Google rewriting your title and potentially putting in utter crap, I'd err on the side of shorter titles than longer.
Yep. And I see you said exactly that in the SEO Questions community on Google Plus, Richard. By the way, thanks for the effort you're putting in there. All right, Pablo, I hope that's the answer you're seeking. And next we have a question from Marianne Weist. Marianne said, I have a couple of SEO questions. I'm a photographer and I use a separate website for my clients to order their images from. Should I set it up so that their galleries are hosted on my website? Would those extra clicks help with my SEO, or does it not matter because they're not onto my homepage? Also, should I buy domains that match the keywords I'm trying to rank high on, like www.kalispellfamilyphotographer.com, and then redirect them to my website? Does that help SEO? Thanks for your help. Just been joined by the world's greatest programmer, Daniel McGraha. Promos SEO in the community on Google Plus said something that I agree with. He said redirection of a fresh domain without any content and authority is meaningless and will not help in ranking. Dwelling time and page views can be a signal, but make sure images are not slowing down your site loading. Richard Hearn said, I'd consolidate to a single domain if possible, and as Promos SEO says, forget about buying redirecting keyword domains like those mentioned in. Pointless exercise and a waste of time and money. I'm in good company. All right, let's move on from this one. Marion, I hope that's been useful to you. Next one is from Gautam Dhanani, who said, hello all, I have one subdomain which contains only 2 pages, brackets, the main domain for this site contains all the stuff and targeted keywords and all. Is it necessary to submit robots text and sitemap.xml for this subdomain or not? I'm seeking an opinion for this.
For 2 pages. I mean, no. If you want to block it, then sure. But if you've got 2 pages, they're not that huge of a deal, then there's not much that you really have to worry about with that. As long as they're static and should be okay.
I'd be asking, why have a subdomain for 2 pages?
It's probably something like a login page or their privacy page or their trust page or something like this. Yeah, it sounds to me unimportant.
Yep.
And the answer was there. Federico Sasso mentioned that, yeah, it's regulated by a subdomain robots.txt. That's all that matters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, Gautam, that is the answer that we give. Here's one for Jennifer Gunjan, who wants to redirect one to another to remove a duplicate pages problem. Jennifer goes on to say, hi all, if a site, say ownerbusiness.com and ownerproduct.com, both having the same pages. If we want to redirect one to the other to remove the duplicate pages problem, which one would you suggest?
Keep the
I'd
one that
suggest, I'm going to suggest if they want a good answer to this, actually supply the real domains.
Mm-hmm.
There's no point in any of us even considering whether ownerbusiness.com or ownerproduct.com are better. Just supply the real domains, and I'm sure someone will say, well, I think you should go with that or go with the other.
if one of them is performing better than the other, more traffic, more profit, whatever, well, that's the one you keep, surely.
Potentially. But you never know. It may be that the one that's doing better is because it's the one that you launched first, but actually that the other domain would do better if it was getting the traffic that is now going to the dupe. So, you know, I mean,
allow me to get my SEO dowsing stick out.
but we don't know, for instance, what their brand is. We don't know, you know, whether they've spent like $15,000 doing stationery up for one or the other. I mean, there's so many things we don't know here that it's.
Yeah.
We don't also
Okay.
know whether one is 5 characters long and the other one is 15 characters long. I mean, there's so many things we don't know here that really what would be good would be if Jennifer came back and actually posted the real domains, and I'm sure I'd be quite happy to look at them and go, well, in my opinion, I would redirect this one to that one.
Okay, Jennifer, that's your answer. If you'd like to repost, post with a disabled link, as in own a business, and write the word .com. The reason we ask for disabled links is because we don't want to be besieged by spammers, but if you can provide a link for us, or at least a path to find your link, we can give you a better answer. Eurus Grimerick asks, Dear all, I have a question and hope someone will be able to help me. I use Creative Commons images on my travel website. The attribution includes a link to the page where the image resides and a link to the Creative Commons license. Here's how a typical page looks like, and the link. I'll try to read the link, but if you don't get it, you'll find it on the SEO Questions community on Google+. But it's http://travelslovenia.org/Piran, Piran-Slovenia, Slovenia/. He said, I usually include 5 to 15 images per page. That means 10 to 30 links. How bad is that for SEO? I would be very grateful for any feedback one could be able to give me.
Community did a decent job on this already. So, I mean, you have to kind of, you know, with a Creative Commons license, I think, was it Edwin who noted you had the link there? That you're already using no follow on the link, so that's not going to impact kind of outside where you're linking to. You should be providing attribution, obviously, so regardless of the positive or negative of SEO, this is one of those cases where you just kind of both legal and it's a good user experience to kind of provide the source of those images if they're not something that you own. So, yeah, you know, I would go with kind of the practice that you've done, and that the benefit that you will gain from it will outweigh any potential negatives you might have from that with SEO.
Tell me something. If my take on this is off mark, but in my view, PageRank, links out from your site aren't something that you can keep in your wallet or spend. A link from your site doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't take, remove any value from your site. It doesn't matter how many links out from your site. It's more like spreading love.
Yeah, every
It's
additional
more
link
like
is a set
spreading love than
percentage.
spending money.
Well, no, it's think of it as you can still go down the money route in some ways, but it's for every additional link, then the value for those links get spread out more. And so him linking out, yes, that's kind of the negative, which is that if he's linking out, then the value of those links go to those outbound sites, and there's less to spend for the other links. However, we're talking only a small amount of links, and so at that scale, small scale, it's not a huge deal. And I wouldn't worry about that. It's a better user experience and legal need to be linking out.
Okay.
I have a suspicion that Google probably treats no-follow links identically, whether they're no-follow links within your site or no-follow links to other sites. And I
Yeah.
have a funny feeling that it's an old wives' tale that PageRank is sunk only on internal no-follow links. I suspect that PageRank is sunk across any no-follow link.
Oh yeah, I'm in agreement. Any link.
I think it's been a myth. I think SEOs have been living in a myth that this idea that it's only that Google somehow treats internal no-follow differently. I think that they just decided that all no-follow links are sunk.
Yeah, I haven't heard many people mention that differentiation in a while. So I think.
Yeah, I think you remember when they had this thing where they changed where they said like PageRank sculpting. They wanted to change how that was been.
Oh yeah,
been
but that was like
affected
5-6 years ago.
yeah, but I don't think there was. I think even then people assumed that the change was to internal links. And my suspicion was that at that time the change was to all no-follow links. But I think you still hear people say, "Oh no, this is to do with how Google treat internal links within your site." And I suspect that all no-follow is just the PageRank is sunk. It's just a sink whenever they see no-follow.
Yeah.
So you're not actually saving PageRank to pass to other links on your page. I suspect it's just sunk. So
Yeah.
it's the same difference whether you pass the PageRank or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have we covered this for you, Russ? I think so. All right. The next question we have tonight, when it comes up, oh no, we've done it again, guys. We've answered all of the questions on the SEO Questions community for yet another week. Thank you very much for that. Now we move on to our SEO News community, where each week, through the week, people like Micah Fisher-Kirshner posted 2 topics this week, or 3. Edwin Yonk, they post items of interest, and we cover them in this SEO News Roundup. By the way, you got, Richard, that you were probably on that post from Steve Wiedemann. I'm interested to know the initials of the person that you think he was talking to.
Well, I'd share it with you privately, but I wouldn't want to put anyone out.
Okay.
I don't think that Steve quite realized that maybe there was a little bit of sarcasm from our side, that maybe it wasn't such a big important piece. It was nice of him to write it, but I don't think there was any real news in there.
Yep, but look, I did try to contact Steve. I added him to my Skype contacts and so on. But and I sent him an invitation for tonight, but we haven't seen him. Let's move on to the next news item, which is highlights of the FTC staff report on Google and antitrust issues. This was an update to a post made by Micah Fisher-Kirshner. Maybe Micah might be able to enlighten us on this.
Yeah. Just kind of reading through Denny Sullivan's quotes on that, and just kind of like, oh yeah, I remember the days when basically back in the comparison shopping world felt that Google was targeting us in the vertical search world, and we could see some of that as through what they were doing, where they were essentially placing up their content into their own, or scraping other sites so they can improve their own systems. That's kind of was the interesting thing, is kind of as he was diving in pretty deep into a lot of the stuff and the emails and the fears that Google had at the time about the vertical search engines. So I thought that it brought back memories.
It's interesting that the FTC are now coming out and they're sort of having to refute claims that they didn't actually take action when they should have, and they're now sort of refuting claims that they did find all these problems. So it's politics, you know. It's it's you're beyond sort of commercial interest and you're into politics. So, but it's quite. I think it's quite enlightening to see some of the claims that were made in the document in terms of what Google was doing, and yeah, it sort of shows that they're probably not above some of the tactics that they would potentially perceive as not been very good. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of this, and I think the interesting point will be what happens in the EU, because of course the EU generally don't yield to political interests in the same way that you see some of these things in the US. And of course the EU are still looking at Google, and I don't think that the EU sort of favors Google in any way, shape or form. So it wouldn't surprise me if there are some changes coming down the road, and we might be seeing different Google than we do in the US, which will be even more entertaining for SEOs.
Well, we already do in a lot of ways today. I mean, what was it? Some of the laws about trying to, pull out the whole personal name stuff and removing kind of articles about them is one of those that already is occurring.
Mm.
So, I still also thought it was interesting in terms of the settlements that essentially they had agreed upon, so that the FTC would FTC would not go and sue them. That they basically did have some agreements where Google made some changes for them. I think that kind of highlights some of the areas in which they might have gone a little too far.
Mm.
Okay, moving right along. Here's one. Google adds subdomain support to the change of address tool in Google Webmaster Tools. Something non-contentious and something we can say nice things about.
I hadn't seen this. I think it's probably going to be an edge case, but it's certainly nice that they have introduced it. It must have been an issue enough for them to actually add this in. So, yeah, interesting.
Another comment? Okay, next we have. Sorry, Micah.
I'm just glad to see it in there. Go ahead. That was really it. Just glad to see it.
And this next one is the issue that everybody's talking about, and I must say that I'm impressed by the reach of Google on this one. Most people in the community aren't really up, but they're all up on this switch by Google to favour mobile-friendly sites for mobile search from April 21. And I'm hearing it from clients all day and all night. I don't know about you guys, but
I think it's
yeah.
because they're sending all these emails out to websites. I think that's probably the reason why everybody seems to know about it. That so many people are getting these emails saying, fix these issues now. And I don't think we've ever seen anything like that coming from Google. I think it's probably the first time.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's you guys? How do you view this change that's coming up? Do you see it as a great impact?
I'm hoping it to be. It's very frustrating, and I wish they'd actually do the same. I wish they'd actually do the same for like the Google News side. There's nothing more frustrating than hitting a site when you're on mobile and not being able to either go to where you need, or you have to zoom in or change the phone layout. Absolutely. I think that makes complete sense to kind of really harp on this and push this on there.
I think this will be sort of akin to going back years where people had their websites in tables. And nowadays it'd sort of be, you'd look at it and you would go, oh my God, like how could you possibly use a table to support your site? And I'd say that this will be the same, that in 1 or 2 years' time we'll be looking back and going, well, how could you possibly have a website that doesn't support mobile? So that's probably the implications of this. It's going to affect everybody. Yeah. And in a couple of years' time, you will not be running websites that are desktop only. Not if you want to succeed.
Yeah. And there should be probably some very, very minor exceptions to that, where it's like, I think personal websites where it's just small stuff here or there, it's just very long tail. Makes some sense to say, all right, well, that doesn't really matter if very few people are going there anyway. But on the whole, makes sense.
I'd say you can only expect to be coming up in results if there's really nothing else there. I'd say they're only going to show you if they can show nothing better.
And this begs another question. What's your preference? Responsive design or a dedicated mobile site for iPhone 6 and below?
Adaptive.
I think adaptive is a sort of really step up. So I would say responsive is probably the way to go initially. And then if you want to take it a step up from there, you're going to look at this sort of adaptive. But, it's very complex, I think. It's probably only going to be sort of like the top 5 or 10% of websites globally who would even have the resources or the know-how to look at adaptive stuff. Probably even less. It's probably like 2 or 3%.
Yeah, if we're lucky. That level.
Define adaptive, please, Micah.
Oh, it's basically more specific based on device and the content and how you show it. So let's start with responsive generally. Responsive is essentially your site scales kind of screen size. Adaptive is a bit more specific to device, and kind of the content that you're going to show is going to vary potentially by device. Consistent regardless of whether it's a user or a bot. Whereas responsive is just screen change, and just everything is there. It's just kind of degrades nicely if you're on the desktop down to the small mobile phones. It's kind of the quick way
Okay,
that
I think I got it.
explain
I learn something new every week here. I really thank you for that, and it's a real privilege to be able to sit here with experts in front of me and ask questions and get answers. It's a real privilege, I tell you. All right, the next one is still on the same article. This is another one now from SEO Roundtable. Google's unequivocal statement: pages with the mobile-friendly label will benefit from the mobile-friendly algorithm. Will we say that we've already covered this and move on to the next?
Well, what was did we talk about? So the one thing that I thought was interesting was just that they were so direct about this. Um, Google likes to hedge oftentimes, and this is one of the few times where they're like, "Yep." So I thought that was interesting in how big they are harping on this thing.
Right. Okay, and another one from Micah Fisher-Kirshner, tracking the evolution of Google Panda updates from monthly to tremors to missing in action.
Yeah, just cool, and that it was a good article by Gabe, and just kind of first, it's just interesting in that for Gabe, who's very big on keeping track of these things, is noticing, hey, this hasn't been updated in a bit, and it's been very odd, and not just Panda, but some of the major updates. So it's kind of like one of those. Is everybody kind of prepping for the mobile changes, and then is everything going out at once? So we're going to see a lot of kind of large changes all at one time. It's just interesting that all those tremors are kind of bit under the radar and not there. So as I think he put it, or someone else put it, it's the calm before the storm.
Is it, or is it a change in direction for Google?
Yeah, that's what I wonder.
I don't know.
I was going to say it.
Yeah,
You
go
okay? You go.
Oh, sorry. To me, I mean, it's just thinking about it as resources. If there's a very large push on this internally, then they're going to shift a lot of resources to focus on mobile, rather than kind of keep reviewing some of the other kind of algorithms that they've got going. And so if they're really focused on that, then it's just a set of resources to mobile, and then putting it all together is just sometimes easier than it is, so that you can kind of look at the changes that you need to be done versus kind of.
We don't know, and I don't think we'll ever know.
Yeah, I mean.
But I think it's interesting that the author of that article is someone who obviously is keeping track of all these things and watching algorithms, especially these penalty algorithms in detail. But I think what's interesting for me is that various people have thought that they're seeing something, and this is where tremors were coming from, but chances are they're seeing something completely different. But my guess is that given that we haven't seen any updates, and given that they have obviously had a change in personnel, especially at the top, the chances are that definitely the priorities have changed. And whether they go back to these algorithms, well, who knows? But you could hear it in, even months ago they were saying, well, we want to bake this into the algorithm, we want to have it in real time, and blah, blah, blah. And we have got it in real time, and now suddenly there's nothing happening. So my guess is that they're either trying to find some alternative means to do some of this stuff, or potentially they've been diverted to something else. But my guess is they're looking for something new,
Mm.
and that maybe they're going to have to review how they have been handling sites that they deem to be not worthy. Especially something like Penguin. I mean, Panda I can sort of understand because they look for quality factors, on-site quality factors, but given the Penguin was driven entirely by off-site quality factors, it meant that great sites could get buried, as opposed to Panda, which is trying to bury poor sites. Time will tell.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
change in terms of any organization often means priorities are absolutely kind of going to change. That makes sense to me as well.
Okay. Now, this is a repeat of an earlier one, but Micah, you might want to comment because this article, apparently you have a bias on this one, given this is where you used to work.
Well, I kind of already mentioned this earlier, so with the other one we talked about, but yeah, yeah, that doesn't make me, yeah, makes me revisit those days. It's sad times. But it goes to show that comparison shopping engines were roughly hit by this. I mean, you can see that when first people were calling it the farmer update to weed out the focus around eHow, and yet eHow was not hit, and the CSEs were. So kind of just interesting, kind of what was stated versus what would happen within Panda at the beginning. Yeah, so that's just me forwarding, saying, yeah, I have a bit of a bias because I was in the CSE industry back then.
Okay. And we've done it again. We've now covered all of our news items as well as all the questions, and I thank you all very much. If you're still watching us in the SEO Questions community on Google+, you'll find an event page for this Hangout and a link to come and join us, and we'd love to have a chat with you. We won't be on the air. We're just going into green room now, and but you're more than welcome to come and join us, and we'd like to see you. I'd like to thank you for your participation in watching what we do and your interest in us. It makes what we do worthwhile. We'll be back at the same time next week